Good evening and welcome to Music Today. This is Keitaro Harada. The concept of this show is to bring in an artist each episode and have a conversation with the artist about a performance we will all watch and listen together. The live component is very important because I highly encourage all the viewers to comment and ask questions. Music Today is a bilingual show. The live streams during your evening will be in English, and the live streams during your morning time will be in Japanese for the fans in Japan. If you want to improve your Japanese skills, you're more than welcome to watch the Japanese interviews too. You can actually put subtitles by clicking on the subtitle button somewhere around here. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in our guest for tonight. Since I cannot hear you applaud, please do me a huge favor and comment by using clapping emojis or use clap, clap, clap so that we know you are there and cheering, and let's get this party started. Please welcome our special guest, Maestro Darko Butorac. Hi, Darko.
Hello. Good morning.
Thank you. Good evening to you. How are you?
Great. It's so wonderful to join you today, Kay.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining me, and we're gonna be exploring fantastic music of Ellington. But before we start the music, I wanted to make sure that we say hello to some of the guests that have already been joining us. Mezzo-soprano Maria Lopez. We have Danya. We have someone named Mickey Sodergren, who you might know.
Mm-hmm.
Sinisha is also here.
Lovely. It's the Serbian Arizona club so far.
I know, right?
Hi, Maria.
Well, Darko, where are you quarantining right now?
I'm currently in Asheville, North Carolina. Beautiful place to be, I have to say. Good weather. You know, people are taking care of each other. So I feel very fortunate.
Fantastic. And I'm glad that you got the memo to wear the white shirt, but it looks...
Yes. Yeah, this is like almost white, but the lighting is so bad in my place that it's actually pink, but you know.
Okay.
Another time. Another time. When I build my studio here in the back, then we'll redo it.
Well, we have so much time now. It's a good occasion to build a studio and do extra projects, right? But,
exactly.
Yeah.
I've never been into gardening before, and like all of a sudden I'm watering plants for the first time in my life. There you go.
Good, very good. So Ellington, Nutcracker Suite after Tchaikovsky, composed in 1960. Tell us about this piece.
So this is a work I've had a chance to conduct quite a few times, and it originally started as a pops concert. I think it was in Missoula was the first place where I did it, and Jeff Tyzik of the Rochester Pops has a fantastic arrangement. I don't know if you've had a chance to do it in your time, but it's a wonderful thing to bring out for, you know, the holiday concert repertoire is just a little bit too repetitive, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And to find things which break it up and are still quality is not easy to do. And so I came across this and I listened to it. I discovered, you know, Ellington has, I think the original suite is in 9 movements. In this case, the orchestra version is 5 movements. And it's playful, it's witty, and it's great music. So it's basically takes Tchaikovsky's music and puts it in a big band 1960s idiom, and it's phenomenal. One thing we should mention, though, you know, it's called Ellington's Nutcracker, but a really big part of the history of this piece was Billy Strayhorn, who worked with Ellington. He was a composer and an arranger and kind of a fascinating personality unto himself. And it was actually his idea to take Tchaikovsky and make it to bring it to the jazz idiom. And so, I discovered this piece. I loved it. And then for a really cool project in Slovenia, that I worked with a pianist, Lisa Smirnova. She's a wonderful artist. She wanted to perform Gulda's concerto for myself. It's a piano concerto. I don't know if you've come across this piece. Gulda, great pianist from Austria, and who himself was also interested in the jazz idiom as well as, maybe the best person ever to play Mozart, in my opinion. So it's the program begged for a diverse element. And so we said, okay, why don't we take some other jazz traditions? And the program was built around Shostakovich's jazz suites, which have nothing to do with jazz, but they're called jazz suites. And then Ellington's Nutcracker was part of it. We did, and then the last piece was the Gulda Concerto for myself. So this is what I chose was the equivalent of the Sugar Plum Fairy. It's called the Sugar Rum Cherry. So it's a little bit of more of a boozy version of the original.
Fantastic. When was this performance that we're about to watch?
So the tour was in summer of 2014. So it's been a while back. But it stays dear to my heart because we took it from Slovenia and we played it at the Vienna Concerthaus. So it was one of the special moments in my life.
Great. Before we start the music, more hellos from Louise Scott.
Oh, Louise. Hi, Louise.
Hi, Louise. And then Ben Irons, Maestri. Yes, that is the plural of Maestri. Thank you, Maria, for correcting him. All right, here we go. This is a little bit of the Nutcracker Suite. It's so much sexier than Tchaikovsky.
Yes, absolutely. This is like candlelight music,
I wonder if it has been danced with ballet.
Yes, in researching it, I came across programs from ballet companies that have adapted it at Christmas time. But the best thing about this show, this was in June. So
really?
Absolutely no connection to Christmas. Just it's about the music.
Yeah.
The neat thing with this orchestra, European orchestras can be maybe a little bit square sometimes when playing jazz. But this orchestra, being a radio television orchestra, actually performs in quite a few different genres, and so they did pretty well. I thought.
Well, but Europe is such a mecca for jazz, though. And
depends where you are.
Oh, okay.
Paris, sure.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
I think as the further east you go, you can't necessarily expect it. But there was some great. The lead trumpet on this show was phenomenal. Not that guy.
But it's not the lead player.
Yeah, no. It was in a different movement that he was featured. But it was really fun experience to work with him on this. And I love drums being played by hands. It's fun. It's such a cool timbre.
Yeah, definitely. And also it helps with the balance too.
Sure. I want to know what Ben thinks about the drum player. Ben was studied at Northern Arizona when I was there on faculty.
I see. That makes sense.
As was Maria.
Ben and I worked together at Arizona Opera, Tucson Symphony, Phoenix Symphony, all the Arizona.
Sure.
organizations? Your hair's different.
Yeah. Well, some choices
Bravo.
can.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
I want to move here just a little bit of the ending too, because it's got such a crazy.
Yes.
You can't fix your hair now because it's too short.
I know. It grows back. Fun little horn lick there.
Yeah.
One unfortunate thing is that the strings are not well balanced on the TV recording. It's cool little counterpoint lines going on underneath, and it's just get lost in the mass.
Was the orchestra amplified?
No.
Do you think the strings could have benefited from an amplification in the
No,
live house?
it wasn't necessary in the live performance.
Okay.
It's just that every instrument was individually mic'd.
Oh, I see.
And the producer chose to focus on that level. It just picked up a little too much of the back. Yeah, quite different from Tchaikovsky, right?
Yeah. Such a great ending, though. I love this piece.
Yeah, screams. Yeah, Maria's right. Sound engineering is everything. Fun times.
Bravo. Fantastic.
It's a great piece. You must program it when you in Savannah. You should do it for sure.
Yeah.
People love it.
Such a good piece. Oh my gosh. Well, bravo. Really fantastic.
Thank you.
Lots of people
that was fun.
saying. Some people are commenting about the hair too. I think I saw.
Yes. Well, as I said, nobody's perfect.
Yeah. Tanisha's asking me if I will play the sax solo. I think if I'm a saxophonist, so I
know.
Have to do the sax solo. That this one's funny too.
Yeah.
And Ben is saying that stoic face was such a smutty sound.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. This is an interesting subject now that we're in kind of in this lots of virtual musical performances. I did one in Tallahassee 2 weekends ago, and it became quickly apparent as immediately when the cameras are present, you have to teach your ensemble to perform for the camera. That it's not the same skill as being in the hall, and I think it's interesting how that element will change now with this. You know how Berlin Philharmonic started to move far more once Karajan started to make the movies, and before it was a little bit more reserved orchestra. I'm curious to see how that will all change.
Maestro Gary Guido is also joining us. Saying bravo. Maestro's going to be on the show tomorrow. So
wonderful. I'll have to tune in.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Another question about where are you guys using this? So, John, I'm using a program called StreamYard, which is a fantastic online program that it's all on cloud-based, and it just allows me to do fun things like this and stream in multiple destinations all at the same time. So I'm streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and etc. etc. So anyway, thank you for asking me that question. So Darko, let's go. What's your take on playing jazz with the full orchestra? Any challenges, or is it, or there is no challenge? What's your take?
It depends, of course, on the orchestra and ensemble. In the U.S., I find it's far easier. So much of the jazz repertoire is driven by wind sections, and most wind players in the U.S. have some contact, some experience with that, and I think that makes it a lot easier. It's not a style that's easy to teach on 4 rehearsals if nobody in the orchestra knows it. And as I mentioned, with the radio television Slovenia, these people play, they record movies, they record for film, for television, they do popular music. So it was a lot easier to get into that. I was worried when I first came. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to teach these people how to swing and all this stuff? You don't have to teach. People listen, they focus on, if you have a good drummer, a good bass player, good lead trumpet, it becomes a lot easier to put it together. And I don't claim any expertise on the genre myself, but I do appreciate it. And the few orchestral pieces I've had a chance to discover, I've really enjoyed. Another Ellington piece that I had a chance to do previous season, 2018, was Harlem. I don't know if you ever came across that work.
I've done Harlem before.
It's phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. It's crazy. And the materials are horrible. I don't know if
the parts.
It was illegible.
You can't read it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guessing that you need to do on that one, but
you just kind of go, okay, good solo.
My jazz teacher used to always tell me, if it sounds bad, just go a half step up, and it sounds great. And it's so true, because when I'm trying to improv and it sounds like, oh, it doesn't sound right, you just go half step up and it's like, oh yeah, it sounds awesome.
I wish it worked like that sometimes in classical concerts.
I know, right? No, it doesn't work that way. It's either right or wrong with us classical repertoire. Darko, tell us a little bit about your path to becoming a conductor.
Well, my path came out of love of the orchestra. I loved orchestral music growing up, and I was fortunate to go to a very good public school orchestra system in Seattle, in Washington. And it was a program that had 3 orchestras, and the top orchestra played standard rep. I mean, it was like an amazing youth orchestra in a high school setting. Unbelievable.
Nice.
And so my senior year, the conductor previously had flirted with the idea of doing Saint-Saëns' Third Symphony. And as a teenager, Saint-Saëns' Third is like the greatest work ever composed on the planet, because it has an organ, is loud and not very subtle. He wisely decided against it. And in my stupidity, I said, well, okay, I will just conduct it myself. And I put together an orchestra with my high school friends at lunch. I made them all pay $2 each so we could buy the music. We bought the music. I got up there and conducted. It was horrible and fell apart immediately. I had no clue what I was doing, but I loved the feeling, and I wanted to explore it further, and I made the decision at that time to pursue this crazy career.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. What was your path? So you went to school to study conducting, I'm assuming?
I went to school first to study cello performance. That's my instrument. And I did that at the University of Toronto in Canada, then Indiana University for grad school in Bloomington. And then subsequently jobs basically in every corner of the US, first right out of school at Northern Arizona University as director of orchestras, which was a wonderful experience and a great place to grow. I think, for conductors, sometimes working with orchestras that aren't professional is really a great cauldron of owning your technique and your ears and your ideas, because the great orchestra will make the same mistake as a student orchestra, except the student orchestra makes it really obvious.
Yeah.
And the principles apply. That's you know well, like all the pieces have the spots. No matter what the orchestra, there's the spot, and it simply will.
It's going to be the same. Yeah.
It's going to be an issue. And so that was really great. And from then on, Missoula Symphony, then Tallahassee, and now Asheville Symphony Orchestras as music director.
One of your colleagues from IU is also watching the show, Roger. Oh, did Darko disappear?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Yeah, Roger Colley is saying hello.
Hey, hi, Roger.
I love Maestro Efron. I wonder if Maestro Efron's watching. I should have sent him a link today.
We should have, totally.
I just wanted to share to the viewers that if they want to learn a little bit more about Darko and his philosophy of conducting, they can always go to his TED Talk.
Oh no, you did.
You can find on YouTube. Just, Google search Darko Butorac and TED Talk, and there you will. I'm not gonna play this right now because
thank you. Appreciate it.
We have you live. We don't need to listen to you talk live on the live. But anyways, so Darko, you're currently the music director for Asheville Symphony and Tallahassee Symphony. I want you to tell us a little bit about both of these organizations. And my question to you that I'm really curious about is, do you approach the two organizations with a different mindset?
Yes. They're different communities. They're different orchestras, different players. So both on a performance level, artistic level, the approach has to be slightly different. And in terms of the community itself, they're different. Tallahassee is a capital city. It's very unusual in its blend of cultures and intersections that come from all over Florida. You have FSU, which brings brilliant people from all over the world. You have people who are associated with the Capitol, lawyers, lobbyists, that whole crowd. Then there's this kind of southern Georgia element of Old South, which exists. It's the panhandle of Florida. It's really fascinating place in terms of community. And the musicians are phenomenal because Florida State University has, the College of Music is an excellent school. And so the professors are principals in the orchestra. They're phenomenal musicians, and they're graduate students throughout the rest of the ensemble. In Nashville, similarly like Savannah, we draw musicians from all over the region, whoever we're able to get. So it's more of a gig orchestra, I guess. People are coming from across the region, and the community is different. There's a lot. Our audience is a lot of retired people who come from bigger cities and settle here and want to enjoy classical music. There's local people. There's a strong, counterculture element in Nashville. So it's a completely different community. And I think it's really important as music director to be sensitive to the needs of both the community and the musicians in both roles, on and off the podium, in how we approach it. So it is different.
That's wonderful. Do you have like a rule to yourself about how to approach them differently? Like more like something that, can you describe a little bit even more apart from the community, but like as a conductor, as a musician, do you have anything extra that you think differently when you make music with one or the other?
Well, the first obvious difference is the hall. Tallahassee has a hall which was renovated about 7-8 years ago, prior to me arriving. And it's quite resonant, a large stage, and poses unusual challenges. Like, no matter where you put the horns, they're very, very strong.
I see.
And if you start rotating around, it's playing whack-a-mole. So you fix something else goes off. So it's a little bit tricky. But generally, the hall is rich, and the orchestra doesn't have to play as hard to make a good sound. In Asheville, it's a much older theater. It's really quite a poor acoustic. It used to be a basketball gym, which was then converted to a theater. It's too wide, too short, and too long. And reflection doesn't really exist. And as one of my musicians quipped, he said, "We're the loudest orchestra nobody hears," referring to the Asheville experience.
I see.
because people really have, especially string players, have to work so hard to make presence of sound. And so, when you have just those two parameters, it's very different. You have to be sensitive to people's approach, what they can give, what the possibilities are, push them there, but don't overdo it. And similarly, technically is different as well. I think there's a process with each orchestra of getting used to the music director, their gestures, and how they respond. I have kind of an idiosyncratic way that I approach conducting, and it takes a year or two to start gelling. And I feel like in Tallahassee, I'm finally gelling with the orchestra and really able to do some really wonderful and spur of the moment things. I like to be improvisatory in my music making, and in Nashville, I feel like I'm beginning to get there now. I'm my second year here.
Oh, it's only your second year. That's the thing, right? It takes time for
absolutely
the marriage to really understand each other, and then the first year you kind of doing. It's hard to put too much of your stance in the first year because you're kind of figuring out what they've done in the past that has been so great, and you're kind of soaking it up. That's sort of my first year at Savannah, and then from the second year probably you get to implement little things, and then from third year on you kind of have a little bit more of a say of what you're doing. So
yes.
No, it's a process. Of course, it's different especially with Asheville and Tallahassee. You've been there. The length of time you've been there is so different. So
yes.
Tell me about Heart of Asheville project that you've done recently.
So this was our response to the whole COVID crisis that happened in March. I arrived here on March 17th, and the next morning I said, okay, we got to do something as an orchestra. Let's do something. And I immediately noticed that other orchestras are putting, the Zoom orchestra thing.
Yeah,
and
the virtual orchestra.
Right. And, even if you look at the top orchestras, the quality artistically cannot be great. It simply cannot. If you're recording on phones, impossible. It's limited in the quality of sound you can produce, etc. And so I thought, okay, rather than make a video that's about just the orchestra playing a piece, how about we make it about Asheville? And so I thought there was a piece that I came to know through Ken Burns' Civil War called The Shokin Farewell. It's a well-known fiddle tune by Jay Unger. There's a simple arrangement for orchestra. So that's what I sent out to my musicians. About 35 of them participated. And then I thought, okay, but that's not enough. What can I do on top of it? And so I decided to go and take pictures myself during quarantine, early in the morning, of the city, of empty streets, and capture that. And then in the Ken Burns movie, there's a narration that goes over the music. And so I wanted to include a narration. I was thinking, is there a local author? Thomas Wolfe is a famous Ashevillean. I just could not find anything. So I wrote the words myself. And that's what the Heart of Asheville is.
Let's take a quick look.
With every bright sunrise, the spirit of Asheville is hidden in the chaotic ensemble of its streets, each one pulsing with an endless current of creativity and inspiration. Hidden within this labyrinth of surprises, it resonates with joy. Intoxicated with art and music, singing forward without care, and perhaps best understood by the rebellious and the free-spirited. Above all, the heart of Asheville lies in its people.
God, I missed him.
You will discover it with every gesture of goodwill typically understated. It blossoms forth with every smile and knowing nod. From the river to the peaks, we are bound by it and become one. A symphony of spirit that floats upon the vibrant mountain air. We are proud. We are strong. We are Asheville.
Oh,
That was. I haven't looked at that in about a month. I spent a month making that. I mean, video editing, sound editing. I did a stupid thing. I should have found somebody to play piano for me. Instead, I conducted the concertmaster and then sent that tape along to everybody else down the line. I made it way too difficult than it needed to be, basically. But the process was very touching, and it found pretty good response here in the community. And that's the whole thing, is that it's not about the orchestra, it's about Asheville itself. And that was the driving inspiration behind the whole project.
It's wonderful, and it really. You are right when you mentioned earlier about a lot of orchestras are doing the virtual orchestra, and it's a nice touch that you added by putting visuals of the community. In retrospect, I wish I would have done that too with ours in Savannah. We did Georgia on My Mind, and it would have made total sense to put a little bit of Georgia in there instead of just the musicians. But what's also yesterday I had conductor Daniel Black on the show, and he's at Florida Orchestra in St. Pete, and he was also talking about how we've become more of a video engineer, video producer these days more than anything, right? Because the skill that we had the skill set from long time ago, because we always had to make our videos for our audition, but now it has upgraded into this much higher level of putting multi-screens and editing the audio content, and the skill sets that we've become more adapted to. Like even me, doing this show,
Sure.
Had I not had the context beforehand, I'd be so lost in trying to figure all this out. So
yeah, I think video editing should be required part of a conducting course these days. I mean,
it is. Well, the thing was, what was funny was Daniel was like, I wish now that I'm applying to, if he a couple of years ago, if he were to be applying to jobs, he would want to just send these videos that he made, because he has the skill set of putting virtual orchestras together. I wonder if it's going to move in that direction for the young conductors applying. What kind of skill set do you have apart from conducting?
I know how to use iMovie really well. Yeah.
I think we all do, for sure.
Yeah.
Darko, my final question for you tonight is, performing music has become such a routine activity for us for so many years. This is what defines us as, artists and performers, entertainers. Then all of a sudden, because of this world crisis, performing in public has become extremely difficult. How has your attitude towards music and performing for an audience changed?
I'm sure you've gone through the same situation, which is when this whole thing struck, I felt like I became busier, but with everything not to do with music. Mm-hmm. The video we showed was the exception. It was, keeping board members engaged, endless Zoom meetings with different committees talking about what are possibilities, what are scenarios, how we can go in the future, etc. Right. And then 2 weekends ago, I went down to Tallahassee to host the first performance since the last rehearsal that ended on March 13th. Mm-hmm. And we took a jazz quintet and a string quartet and a singer, 10 people. inside a large nightclub. Everybody spaced. Video was there, and I was like the host for that.
Mm-hmm.
And just being in the room and hearing my colleagues perform was so moving.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, like a part of me had returned from being gone for such a long time. And so I suppose one thing that gives me hope is this will pass.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment it does, and we're back on stage all together, not just the conductor, all the musicians together on stage, it will be the most important concert of our lives whenever that happens. Because the love we share for it being taken away without our decision, Coming back to that, I look forward to that day, and I can't wait until it happens. Doesn't matter what the repertoire is, it will be spectacular, and I live for that.
I feel that we've taken for granted this making of music because it was such a routine activity. Week by week, we made music, and it was such a norm, right? It's like eating your cereal, eating breakfast, but now all of a sudden, when that component is completely out of our formula of our daily life, it's just you miss it so much that it hurts.
Yeah. I have a ritual before every concert. When I'm backstage after the concertmaster goes out to tune, I'm all alone in darkness, and I turn to usually a corner, some area of myself. I kiss my cufflinks. I guess I read that from a Bernstein book, so I figured if it was good for Lenny, it's good for me. And then I just give I suppose a prayer of thanks for both whatever may be good or may be bad, whatever it is, just to be grateful for the opportunity to go out on stage and make music. And I remind myself already every concert of that before going out, even if it's like, the most banal pops, whatever kind of concert that maybe you're not even excited about conducting. I always take that moment and reflect on how special it is to be able to make a life in music.
That's music is still music, no matter what.
Exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Before we close the show, I want to make sure that I recognize some people who have been applauding. Thank you, Phyllis from Savannah. Samir Nikotrovich.
Hi, Samir.
Also here. Dania, who, Daniela, who I completely agree. We can't wait to go back on stage. Dan Pertu is also here. Alexandra Lee.
Oh, yes. We went to school together at the University of Toronto in prehistory, it feels like. Great to see you, Alex. Sasha.
Well, Darko, thank you so much for your time. This was such a wonderful way to catch up and then to see your activities at Asheville and Tallahassee. And I encourage all the viewers to visit the website, both organization and also Darko's social media activities and website. And then don't forget to catch the TED Talk that Darko is very embarrassed about.
That thing is a life of its own, Kay. I have no idea. I did it in Montana, and I kind of ignored it, and then next thing I know, it has over 100,000 views. Business people love to talk about conducting. That's what I've discovered.
It's the power of TED Talk, that's for sure.
Exactly.
And those of you who are watching, please tune in again. I'm doing this every day at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, almost every day, but actually every day. Tomorrow we have Maestro Gary Uedo joining us. Fantastic maestro of repertoire, everything and beyond, but just amazing musician. And also the interviews are in Japanese at 9 p.m. in Japan time. So if you want to brush up on your Japanese skills, please join me on that.
I will have to check that out. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, Darko, thank you so much for your time. And then to everyone who's watching, have a wonderful evening, and then come back again tomorrow.
Thank you so much for having me, Kay. Bye.
Of course.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録、いいね、そしてこのビデオをぜひシェアしてください。